Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion LA Galaxy. And now, here are your hosts, Josh Guesman and Wendy Thomas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Glad to be coming to you live on a Thursday night from Corner of the Galaxy Studios. Have my great co-host, Miss Wendy Thomas. I'm Josh Guesman. Thank you so much for stopping by and spending some time talking some LA Galaxy with us. We have a jam-packed show, absolutely to the gills. There's no way we can fit any more in. There's no way we can do any more. But we're glad you're here. We're glad you're going to sit with us. And we're glad we're going to get to talk some LA Galaxy soccer. Talking some Chicago game, the 2-2 draw with Chicago. We have LA Galaxy news to go over. And, of course, getting you ready for the New York Red Bulls. Going to be joined by Mark Fishkin from Seeing Red coming up later in the show. So that's what we have in store. That's sort of what's on the docket. Like I said, lots of stuff to go over, lots of things to do. We'll start where we always start with talking to Wendy. Wendy, how are you doing? Hanging in there?
Well, I'm doing great, but I'm not the one who had to record 4 podcasts this week.
Yes, somebody got a little overactive, maybe a little
ambitious.
Yeah, apparently. There was just it all stemmed from the fact Kevin had to cover hockey, and so he couldn't record on Tuesday. And I'm like, after the game on Saturday, there was lots of things I wanted to say. So I got Brittany Pergel to come on and talk some post-game audio with me because we talked to like 7 or 8 people, which never happens. Usually we get like 3 people at max, but we got like 7 or 8. And there was so much stuff there. I'm like, there could be a whole show just on the audio. And so if you haven't listened to the Monday night show, it's about half an hour long, a little over a half an hour, some great post-game audio, dissection there, talking about what the guy said. And Britt was there in the locker room with me, so she also got the vibe of the place, the same as I did. So it's a good little thing there. But yes, I'll be happy that this show is over when it's over. But right now, I'm happy to be talking to you.
Well, likewise.
So we have, like I said, there's a bunch. There's a bunch of stuff to get to. We have to start at the very beginning. And we're going to go ahead and dive into this 2-2 draw with Chicago Fire. This is an interesting game, Wendy. I'm going to let you, really talk this out. People have heard my thoughts sort of on the game. I will say this, that at 2-0 at halftime, with Van Damme off the field because Curt pulled him, with Jermaine Jones off the field because he got injured, I was convinced I was getting ready to write and the LA Galaxy fired Curt Onalfo story before he even made it to the press conference.
You've been working on that article for quite some time now.
I keep typing it and then deleting it, and then typing it and then deleting it. Yeah, it's back and forth. And that was the feeling, I think, in the press box. And we've talked about this, but, for reporters and, you write to the story. And the big story here was, what would the Galaxy do if they lost? And so you're sort of sitting there 2-0. Everybody's already like, just chomping at the bit, getting ready to write that story. And then the Galaxy come back and they tie this game 2-2 in a good fashion, an exciting game. The LA Galaxy played an exciting game. Maybe weird, Wendy, because I think every game has been weird. But what did you sort of take away from the 2-2 draw?
I do think that the narrative switched, as it were, for the evening. And I did think it was fascinating because it's sort of like a play within a play. There's the game that goes on the field, but then there's another game that's going on, and that's going on between all the characters involved in this particular story. And so part of me was watching the game, but another part of me was playing out in my mind, oh, well, what is, because there's sort of subtext to all these different moves, and you're wondering, what is the particular subtext?
Right.
So in a way, part of me was tempted just to see this as dogs all peeing on one another, because you've got these sort of brash personalities who are all trying to assert their dominance within a particular sphere of influence. So you've got Jelle Van Damme and Curt Onalfo and Jermaine Jones, and they're all trying to get power. Essentially, it's like a power play where they're trying to push other people out of their jurisdiction and establish themselves as the big dog, and that's why they're peeing on the trees. Right. The tree, in this case, being the LA Galaxy. But then you started to see how the decisions that Curt Onalfo made really had an impact on the game. So he pulls Jelle Van Damme out, and the team dynamic immediately changes. Now, I did not see anything from Jelle when he came out. I didn't see didn't see him refuse to shake Curt Onalfo's hand.
No, he shook his hand. Yeah, he shook his hand.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything that was overtly disrespectful. But at the same time, you could sense that there is a tension between certain of the players and Curt Onalfo. And I think that Jelle is probably the one who's, the biggest target. He's the captain. I think he does a lot of times what I have found Michael Bradley to be guilty of when I watch him play for the U.S. national team, which is that you almost have a sense that in his mind, he's taking ownership of a lot of responsibilities that he shouldn't be taking responsibility for. So he's saying to himself, okay, I'm the center back, but the team isn't scoring goals, so I need to also get into the attack. And we're also not really playing well in the wing. I need to try and make sure that I get out to the wing, and then I've got to push forward. I got to make sure that we defend on the right-hand side because we don't have a reliable right back. And so you can just see him assuming all these mental responsibilities for things which are not really his jurisdiction.
Right.
And I feel like it's so detrimental to his game. And also, there's a bigger problem with that, which is that when players like Jermaine Jones and Jelle Van Damme start playing a superhero and thinking to themselves that they're going to fix this problem. They're going to push forward. They're going to score the goals themselves. They're going to create, even though they're not supposed to be the creator. They're going to be a striker, even though they're not supposed to be a striker. One major problem is that, one problem that fans have is they're trying to figure out what exactly is wrong with this team.
Right.
And when you have players who are taking it upon themselves to be the fixer, to fix what's going on, then you're interfering with the diagnostic process. And the diagnostic process is we're trying to figure out what the problem is. Is the problem the LA Galaxy's tactics, the formation, the players, the coaching? What exactly is going wrong? But when Jelle or, Jermaine Jones decide that they are going to just start roaming the field, well, then that becomes the central problem because, they are essentially being a superhero, trying to be the everything player. But diagnostically, we're not going to be able to figure out, what is, if the LA Galaxy was a patient and we were trying, and there was actually had a metastatic cancer, we wouldn't be able to know because it was presenting symptoms of multiple sclerosis. It's like you're presenting as one thing, but maybe there's another problem. When you have,
I was going to say, Wendy, I've watched a lot of House. I know the answer is always lupus. All right. So that's probably what's wrong with the LA Galaxy. Everybody should probably get that treatment. But no, go ahead.
But Curt Onalfo I think he was correct to take Jelle Van Damme off. Obviously, Jelle, I think he's doing just way, way, way too much, trying to do way too much. And we can't have multiple players all just roaming the field wherever they want. And I also think it was extremely interesting because once Jermaine Jones came out, the entire dynamic of what was going on looked radically different. I thought João Pedro had his best game for the LA Galaxy, and I am sure this is not a coincidence.
Right.
And I thought, I don't know if João Pedro I don't think he's what they thought he was, but he could demonstrate that he's at least like a competent midfielder, and that would be a big step in the right direction.
No, it would be a huge step in the right direction. I agree with you, by the way. I think that João Pedro now being paired with Baggio Husidic in the last 2 games has been a cohesive player. He's at least put together. He's making tackles. He's stringing passes together. He has in the last 2 games, he's been the second leading tackler on the field, second to Bradley Diallo, who in the last 2 games has had the most tackles. And you could understand that from Diallo's point of view. Everybody's going to be attacking him and coming up that right-hand side. So he's going to be the guy who's forced into making the most tackles. But I thought João Pedro played very well. I thought Baggio Husidic played well. I know people love to hate Baggio, and I'm never going to tell you that he's a world star, Wendy. He's not. All right, he's not.
He's not. Are you kidding?
No. He's bulletproof Baggio. He is what he is. But
he is our vegan.
But yeah, he's the vegan, and you go the all vegan midfield with him and Jermaine, which is going to have to take a little bit of a break right now. But you look at what Baggio has done, and he comes in and he's just solid. Kevin Baxter was talking about you saying, and I'm not going to disagree with you because I think that you have the perfect. Very balanced, by the way, fan view of Jelle Van Damme, right? Which is that he was unbelievable last year. I don't think anybody denies that, right? And that, what was that?
He was unbelievable last year.
Yeah, he was. He was unbelievable last year. He was excellent. He was everything and more than the Galaxy thought they were going to get. Him this year have been different. And I think that a lot of people see him the way that you do, which is he's trying to do too much. And he's trying to do. And I think that's the same goes with Jermaine Jones, which, you can say that he's trying to do too much or he's just tactically ineffective because he's trying to do everything all over the place. And he certainly had that criticism with the U.S. men's national team. So you have two of those guys. You got Romain Alessandrini that likes to do that too, and Giovanni Dos Santos too. So you got four of those guys who do that stuff. But with Jelle Van Damme, Kevin talked on Tuesday night and had talked to a veteran player. And basically, we've been hearing, and I've heard this as well, that Jelle Van Damme was not cutting it at practice. That he wasn't he's the captain and he's the guy that Curt picked to be the captain. And after last year, you could understand why you'd want Jelle to be.
He was great last year.
He was great last year, right? And he did what he was supposed to the whole thing. Apparently this year, he is not that same guy. And the thing is, he's not. It seems like maybe he's not playing in practice as hard as he should be, and he's not trying to follow the game plan. The reason Jelle Van Damme got pulled out of the game on Saturday against the Chicago Fire was because the game plan, at least it looked like, the game plan that Curt Onalfo had put in was to play the ball on the ground through the midfield and do these things, right? Jelle Van Damme was, if you look at the way he passed the ball, responsible for both goals. And it was the long balls over the top that didn't find their targets. And in one case, I think the second goal where they counterattacked and scored, he pulled Bradley Diallo out of position by playing the long ball, and then it came back and it scored, and that's when Curt subbed him, was after that. And so that's probably the most egregious error. The first one you could also blame on a long ball that eventually gets transitioned to the other side. Chicago intercepted both of them very easily and countered them, and the Galaxy were pressed into an attacking formation, and you can see that when they get pressed up the field and Jelle goes for the long balls, that if they don't connect, that teams are able to counter, and that's what they've been able to do on this.
Yes.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, I want to tell you that, there have been a lot of players complaining that Curt Onalfo was not holding the veterans responsible. Jelle Van Damme was one of those guys. I think Jermaine Jones was one of those guys. I think Giovanni Dos Santos is one of those guys that Curt Onalfo has not held accountable so far this year. I will tell you that right now, all reports from practice are that this was the best, most focused week of practice the LA Galaxy have had, and that it's night and day difference with Jelle Van Damme between how he was then and how he is now.
Very well. This leads me to a contemplation of the play within the play, which I think is very interesting. So Curt Onalfo has a real challenge, which is he has paid all of this money for all of these expensive players like Giovanni Dos Santos and Jermaine Jones and Jelle Van Damme. He has to play them if they're healthy. If at the same time, by removing Jelle Van Damme, he does what he's supposed to do as a coach, which is to exercise discipline over a player if he doesn't think he's doing what he's supposed to do. But another part of this problem is that he realizes that in order to be the best team the LA Galaxy can be, he has to get excellent performances from his top players, which means they have to want to play for him and perform well for him. And I'm sure on some level he must be, or he should be contemplating the fact that, if Jelle Van Damme doesn't like Curt Onalfo, doesn't want to play for him, he could just be biding his time, hoping that that Curt Onalfo is not long for this job. So Curt, this is an excellent coaching challenge. How does he get players who essentially have a bigger profile than he does to want to put in their best effort for him as their coach? But this is where I think the whole notion of a professional soccer player comes into being, because I have had bosses and supervisors that I hated. There's plenty of people in the context of a profession when you do not like working with them. Right. But when you are a professional, it means that there's been certain standards in your training, that there is a code of ethics or conduct which you've agreed to abide by, that it means that you are going to impose managerial controls over yourself. That means that no matter what you think of Curt Onalfo, and God knows he has received more criticism from me than almost anyone in this country, that it is incumbent upon you to try and exercise his game plan and implement it to the best of your ability, because that's what it means to be a professional, is you put aside your personal feelings and try and do what is right for your profession. So I think that, Jelle Van Damme or any other player who thinks, like, I'm not going to say any names, or okay, Giovanni Dos Santos, anyone who thinks that they just don't have to try because whatever, if you are truly a professional, then it doesn't matter who your coach is. You should do your best possible job to implement the vision that they have for the team. And if their vision is bad, then that'll be exposed.
Right.
But it shouldn't take it upon yourself to try and sabotage a coach, to try and sabotage a colleague, sabotage a player. It's just not part of what it means to be a professional.
No, and I think that, listen, I mean, now is the whole question, and people are questioning this. I'm certainly not questioning it, at least I don't think. People are saying, well, is Jelle Van Damme still going to be the captain? I mean, you brought your captain off. Is he still going to be the leader of your team? You had to bring him off. The guy didn't even sit on the bench in the second half. All right, the guy wasn't out there. That's a black mark against Jelle Van Damme. I don't care what you think about Curt Onalfo. Jelle Van Damme could have proven a ton that he was absolutely the leader. He gets pulled, he comes back on the bench, and he rallies his team, and he's there on the bench to cheer them on. That's what you would expect from a captain. And he didn't do that. Now, I don't think that Curt takes the captaincy away from him, because that's another blow. You already embarrassed the guy. You pulled him in the first half. There's no need to go any further.
And Curt knows on some level he cannot have a team if Jermaine Jones, Giovanni Dos Santos, and Jelle Van Damme just don't want to play for him. That's just not going to work.
Exactly. And, Curt is getting to the point now where, like we all said, he was on the hot seat. If he loses that game, he may have gotten fired. He did something to adjust that game, and he's trying to tell whoever is at the LA Galaxy management in the front office that I'm going to play the guys who can make me win. I'm not going to play the guys that you say I have to play. Because remember, Curt Onalfo didn't sign Jelle Van Damme. That was Bruce Arena. Right, and they didn't, and for the most part, it was the front office of Pete Vianis and Chris Klein that gave Van Damme the raise, which I think he deserved. There's no problems with that. But those guys are the guys who are bringing guys in. Curt has to play his best team. But like you said, Wendy, there are certain people that we know that if they're available, they're going to have to play.
But if they're available, if they represent a certain demographic which you are cynically, manipulatively trying to bring into MLS, then I guess you have to play them.
Well, so this was Curt Onalfo not only standing up to Jelle Van Damme, in my opinion, all right, but also standing up to the front office and saying, listen, you're going to fire me if I don't get wins, so we're going to win my way. And this is what I want to see. Van Damme's on the bench right now because he's not performing and he's not acting the way that I expect him to. He's not executing my game plan. And so I don't care how much we paid him. He's on the bench. And I don't know. I mean, we're going to talk about Jermaine Jones and the injury and what the injury means. But in terms of just this game and how that happened, I don't know that Onalfo doesn't pull Jones off later. Now, maybe that's giving him way too much credit, which very well could, right? But at the same time, we're never going to know. And you cannot separate these two events in the outcome that came from the LA Galaxy. Getting the 2 goals back was directly related to Jelle Van Damme and Jermaine Jones not being on the field. It's not because Jermaine Jones wasn't on the field, and it's not because Jelle Van Damme wasn't on the field. In my opinion, you can't separate them. It was both of them. And that sent a shockwave through the LA Galaxy, and the young players thought for a second, I can play on this team. If I play hard enough and I do a good enough job right now, Curt's at the point where he's going to play whoever is going to get him wins. All right?
Yeah, well, Curt is like against the ropes. It's round 10. We're going into the late rounds here in this battle. But I think that, listen, we still didn't win the game, okay?
No.
We're still a terrible team.
Yep.
And we still have an abysmal record. And Curt Onalfo should still be waking up in hot sweats every night thinking that he deserves to be fired, because we've been hot garbage this year, okay?
Absolutely.
But that being said, I certainly think that the last game was very interesting, and particularly in terms of its narrative implications for the LA Galaxy season. I still think we're in desperate and dire circumstances, but I appreciate the fact that, realizing that he might get fired anyway, Curt Onalfo attempted to assert himself over the team, because even though he realized that by benching the big players who the front office decided to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on, that he would rather go out his way
Right.
and their way.
Right. Save your "I told you so's" for the Galaxy news part. All right. Just hold on. Just hold on. Just for a second. I'm gonna let you go, but just hold on just a little bit. So Jermaine Jones comes out in the injury here. The LA Galaxy score 2 goals. Daniel Steres gets 1. Dave Romney, who's the sub, gets an assist. Giovanni Dos Santos gets 1. The LA Galaxy still without a goal from a striker in the run of play. That's still an issue. It's still a gigantic issue. It's still something that's going to keep raising its ugly head until they fix it. We talked about Baggio Sidic and Joel Pedro playing better. I mean, here's one thing. There's 2 people who I thought had very poor nights, and they sort of got hidden by the fact that the Galaxy came back and got a draw. And the 2 people that I think had very bad nights, and I love your opinion on this, is Gyasi Zardes and Brian Rowe.
So I didn't notice Rowe's game really, because I tend to, when we're playing this badly, I just tend to put him on, and he's in the rear burner. Gyasi Zardes is just, it's like he forgot how to play soccer.
Right. No.
I know he went 6 months without playing, but he does not look remotely like the same player that he used to. And I don't even mean physically, athletically, in terms of his endurance, all those things which would be compromised by coming back from injury. His reading of the game is off. His judgment has never been really good, but it's like he forgot how to play. It's like it's just escaped. He woke up with amnesia and thinks that he should be working at a Foot Locker.
I mean, there is some. I think there is something to that. He's never had a good first touch, and anybody who says that he has is lying. We saw that on the game. To me, it's people keep asking, when can we stop blaming it on the injury and the time off? And Wendy, I'm like, sort of like, okay, it's now. It's probably right about now. We're there.
Right now.
Yeah, but the other side of this too is that, and certainly if you look at all of the strikers the LA Galaxy have played this year, nobody has been integrated into this team.
They're all bad.
Well, is it so? Then that's the question: are they all bad, or is the system just hasn't clicked for them yet? Because I certainly think the system hasn't clicked.
I mean, the problems I think predominantly have been in the midfield with that god awful pairing of Pedro and Jermaine Jones.
Right.
I think we've isolated the fact that Jermaine Jones wants to just roam the field doing whatever he wants, just does not sync well with this 23-year-old kid from Portugal who's never lived apparently away from his mother and doesn't really speak English. And
he speaks good English. We just talked to him. We got him on he's fine. And I think he's adjusting. He likes playing with Baggio, Wendy. So let's put those 2 together.
All like Baggio, the little vegan. He's everyone loves him.
That's right. That is true. Everybody, Bulletproof Baggio is my favorite person.
Well, yeah, of course he loves playing with Baggio because he knows Baggio is going to be in the center midfield.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Baggio doesn't go off into the wing and bump into Emma Boateng trying to put a cross in. That's not what he does.
Yep.
So, I mean, of course he prefers to play with a player who's reliable and predictable. But at the same time, Jermaine Jones is still one of the most talented players on our roster. It's this real conundrum that it's what I said last week. The concept of him being a really talented player and yet also a huge problem to the team, not mutually exclusive concepts.
No, totally accurate, I would think. That's sort of my whole thing. It's like, Jermaine Jones should be on the bench, but he is one of the most talented players.
He is one of our most talented players.
Like, can you put him in the corner and just make him stand there, and then whenever it's time, he jumps in, and then he has to go back and stand? I don't know how it works. But anyway, no. I mean, so for me, and I'll give you my view on Brian Rowe. Brian Rowe had a huge bobble in which Chicago should have scored. He has not looked solid since he's sort of come back in place of Diop and injured. He's had little bobbles here and there, which maybe that was always Brian Rowe. Maybe Diop was better than I remember, but he needs to fix that because Diop isn't coming back right now, and Brian Rowe is the clear number 1, so he needs to shore that up, and he needs to get better in these next games. That's something I want people to pay attention to is Brian Rowe and whether or not he is going to be in this for the long haul. Because if not, the LA Galaxy in the summertime need to find a goalkeeper, a real goalkeeper, somebody who could command the back four, somebody Jelle Van Damme will listen to as well. Because if you're not controlling all those guys from the back as a goalkeeper and you're not making the saves you're supposed to make, that is the number one reason why the hook comes out and you get taken off the field. All right, let's go on. Let's move on. We've already 25 minutes on the 2-2 draw. I'll say this before we close. Despite how fans feel, the players right now feel very positive about the result that they got. Very amped up. They're very much focused, and it seems like from training and everything they've had this week that they are locked in and ready to go to New York. So that's good news. We talked about it, Wendy. What's the best thing for this team is that they start winning. right? Like the ultimate best thing,
Yes,
if you're
that is what we want to happen.
if you want the season to still be salvageable, you want them to win, and you want Curt Onalfo to work. That's the ultimate.
Yes, we all want him to be successful. That's the thing about when people were calling me a man hater before the season began. It has nothing, not remotely close. I want success for everyone within the LA Galaxy organization. I'm their biggest. I'm rooting for absolutely everyone to succeed. It makes me miserable to watch us lose. I would much rather be wrong and for people to think that I'm an idiot than to see the LA Galaxy ruse.
Yeah, I'll gladly be wrong on lots of things. All right, let's get to LA Galaxy news before we bring on Mr. Mark Fishkin. A lot of stuff happened actually this week, so we have some in-depth stuff we need to talk about. The first thing is something that I think we've told you about. I don't know, starting back in the beginning of the season, was that Robbie Rogers wasn't going to play anymore this year. And
it was literally January.
Yeah,
yeah.
This is all stuff that we knew. So anyway, finally paperwork cleared, and I think even on Monday night's show, I think I said to expect something this week, and it did get announced. LA Galaxy have officially placed Robbie Rogers on the season-ending injury list. All right, so that means something now. Okay, one, it means that Robbie Rogers is not going to play for the rest of the year, which we knew, and in all likelihood, this is a Josh and Kevin stance, and I think it's a lot of people's stance right now. Robbie Rogers is probably never going to play for the LA Galaxy again. All right, so that's the way it is. Okay, so Rogers makes $225,000 this year. That is his salary. Okay, and ultimately we'll just call that's the cap number that the LA Galaxy have on his salary as well. So there's a provision that states that a player can be replaced at equal value, basically. So what it means is the LA Galaxy don't necessarily get quote unquote cap relief, Wendy. The $225,000 stays on the books. It stays as part of the cap. But what they're able to do is go out and get another player and put them into that spot. So then that player can make up to the player's salary, $225,000. Okay, so it's not cap relief, but you're getting another player without adding any more to the cap. Now, if you get a player that costs less, then I think you still have to take the $225,000 on the cap, right? So you try to get a player, you're going to get them all the way up to that 225. What the best player you can get for 225, that's what you want to do. Okay, does that make sense?
So yeah, I get it. I totally get it. You can spend up to $225,000 for free. And so since there's no penalty, and you don't actually get the cash, you want to spend basically exactly $225,000. You want to find the most player you can get for $225,000.
Yeah, and so they still have the chance to do this. All right, they talk about the cap relief and some different things that have happened. And so basically, the rules here, as stated, this is the budget charge for season-ending injuries. Right, the budget is the cap space basically. So it says the injured player must be earning at least $100,000 per annum per year. So Robbie Rogers makes more than that. The injured player must have suffered the season-ending injury prior to the close of the primary transfer window, which of course it did. It actually happened in between seasons, but we'll get to that in a second. And the new player must be signed as of such date in the transfer window. Now, technically, you could get that's the salary cap relief that you could possibly be getting if you did it in the primary transfer window. But because it's outside, the LA Galaxy are allowed to replace them up to that $225,000, okay? That's the basic rule. That's how it works. There's one provision that says that the player can't be making more than $250,000. So basically, if your player made, $300,000, you could replace that player up to $250,000. Don't ask me why they have all these little rules, but the club is still responsible for paying Robbie Rogers' salary. They're still responsible for paying this new person's salary, but it just doesn't hit salary cap. So that's what you need to know. Okay.
I hear AJ De La Garza is a pretty good defender. We could maybe get him.
I don't think you can afford him because he makes $250,000 right now, and so you'd have to get him. You'd have to get him at a discount. So, this is what Curt Onalfo said at training today. Talking to reporters, he says we're potentially looking at players that can fill that role. I would pay attention to that more than not. All right, let's just say this is one of those times when Josh says pay attention. Pay attention. The LA Galaxy should fill that role. I think they should fill it quickly, and they should look at that same position in that right back role. And if they have somebody in mind, they should make that happen quickly. All right.
So who could we get as a defender for $220,000 in MLS.
I'm wondering if you can persuade one of somebody said, well, it can't be a European player because nobody's going to pay for 200. I'm like, maybe you could persuade somebody to come in for the year for $225,000, and then you could bump them up next year if you wanted to. If you wanted to do that, maybe you could. You could orchestrate it. I don't know if that's happened. I don't know the answer to this. I have no idea, but I'm telling you, I think the Galaxy, if they're smart, will move quickly on this. And get somebody in that right back role.
Well, what do we know from this season, Josh? They're not smart.
Well, again, this is the thing we always say in the podcast.
Assuming that they're smart again.
We're not assuming that they're going to make sense or do the thing that we expect them to do, because so far that's been our downfall. All right, let's talk about Jermaine Jones, diagnosed with a grade 2 MCL sprain/tear. By the way, it's always a sprain/tear. So if you hear me say tear, it's a tear. If you hear me say sprain, they mean the same thing. Okay, I love how there's even twisting and PR wording in an injury that has a medical definition, Wendy, and it drives me crazy. It's like he tore something. It's not a full tear. It's not horrible. It's not the worst thing. I will tell you this: the LA Galaxy have said they expect him back in 3 to 4 weeks. I will tell you that doing my research on the internet and looking up this particular injury, that it's anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months. It is on the same knee that he had the LCL problem as well, so that could complicate things and do things and stretch things out. So feasibly, if he's back in 3 to 4 weeks, you could see him back for the DC United game, the last game of the 4-game road trip, or it would be against the Houston Dynamo on June 17th. That's sort of that seems more likely that they play at the home game and not make him do DC United, that type of thing. So, Wendy, here's the thing. Just to remind you and get you started. Jones's salary, $722,500. That's a $72,500 raise from his time with Colorado, where he played in 9 games. He is now out 3 to 4 weeks at least. Could be up to a lot longer than that if it all goes. One, I have to ask you if you want to say I told you so right now, or two, if you think the Galaxy actually are dodging a bullet and it might be worth every penny to see him sit on the bench for 4 weeks and see what the Galaxy can do without him.
Right, it's a real double-edged sword.
I know.
Right?
You kind of want to be mad.
It's kind of interesting. It's like, well, listen, if only someone could have seen this coming, right? Who could have predicted that a player who's 36 years old, who tore his ACL last year and played 9 games, would re-injure himself? But in fact, there was a podcast not too long ago that had a little diatribe from yours truly, wherein I went to the Los Angeles Public Library and researched re-injury rates following ACL tears and determined that it's actually quite prevalent, that its incident rates are higher the older a player gets, that recovery times get longer the older a player is. I'm not going to, I don't know.
You don't want to rehash the whole thing.
What's the point of saying I told you so? It's no point.
People just go back and listen to that podcast.
Go listen to the podcast. It was the big group podcast, remember?
The All Hands podcast where we had
the All Hands podcast. It was all the LA Galaxy podcasts.
Yep.
We all did a podcast together, and I did a little book report. But
no. Here's the thing, and I agree with you. And as soon as we found out how much he was actually making, we
$722,000.
Yeah, I think as you said,
that's 3 AJ De La Garzas.
Yeah, it could have been if you wanted to pay AJ $720. Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but you could have kept AJ for $250 because that seems like what was built into his contract, sort of to move up. So that's the whole thing. You look at the Robbie Rogers thing, and you put this in perspective with the Jermaine Jones thing. Is that the LA Galaxy absolutely knew that Robbie Rogers was having complications. Anybody who tells you they didn't know is just lying to you. All right? So if you see anybody out there saying, oh, well, they didn't know that Robbie Rogers was injured, and how serious it was, they knew. And they traded AJ De La Garza anyway. That is going to be something they get judged on for the rest of the year. That's just the way it happens. All right? So,
but as you point out, there's a whole nother aspect to the Jermaine Jones injury, which is that it's kind of a blessing in disguise.
I know. It's so hard. And like we were saying, would Curt Onalfo have pulled Jermaine Jones?
No.
Probably not.
He never would have pulled him. But after the grief they got for signing him for their money that they're paying him, he never would have benched him.
But that's not Curt's problem. See, this is where we get into the two roles, right? And what he's doing now. He's not the guy who gave Jermaine Jones $722,000. That's Pete Vagenas and Chris Klein. Those
Yeah,
are the
but
guys who are on the
they
hook for
are all, it's the three of them together. They're all best buds, right?
that.
Chris Klein is the one who decided to give the job to Curt Onalfo. He can't alienate Chris Klein. He can't alienate Pete Vianis. He needs them in his back pocket. So they need to do a little tit for tat for one another, right?
Do you think that Curt Onalfo is best buds with Chris Klein right now when Chris Klein is going to be responsible for Curt Onalfo's firing if he loses stuff?
Well, Chris Klein gave him his job, right?
Well,
so he obviously had a high opinion of Curt Onalfo. I assume that Curt Onalfo was extremely appreciative of the fact that he got this excellent job in Major League Soccer after having had 2 previous jobs where he had a losing record as an MLS coach.
Remember that it's very likely that Bruce Arena signed off on this before he left.
I know, the Godfather.
All right, so some of this is Bruce as well. And so you
yes, Bruce gave his blessing, but Bruce is,
gone.
let's say, emotional.
Do you think Bruce is emotional?
I think Bruce has strong. I think he is sort of a loyalty, pageantry, tribalism guy. Like, he sticks with his guys.
Right.
His guys are. I mean, that's the way he's always been as a coach, right? He would trot out DeMarcus Beasley in the 2026 World Cup if he was the coach, because he's his guy. You know, his guys are the ones he likes to stick with. And I think that there's a certain breed of coach that is of that mindset. And whereas there's others that are like, no, competition, whoever plays for me, I have no loyalty to players. You know, it's a different mindset. And that's how I think Bruce coached. And that's who I think he is, basically. But yeah, the Godfather signed off on it. And so Curt Onalfo got the nod. But I'm sure he does everything in his power to stay in Chris Klein's good graces.
I mean, up to a certain point, but you have to think that if they're telling players, if this is actually what's happening, if the front office, if Pete Vianis and Chris Klein are saying, hey, you have to play Jelle Van Damme, you have to play Jermaine Jones, you have to play, and they're dictating who they have to play and by how much money they're spending on them, you dictate that, especially in Major League Soccer. And now Curt Onalfo's saying, hey, I bench Van Damme, you know, maybe, and again, this is hypothetical, I don't know. I was going to bench Jones too because I'm tired of playing guys who don't play my way. And you know what? This is my team, and if you're going to fire me, then I'm going to go down with my team right now. And I think that's what Curt sort of made with the Jelle Van Damme stand, is this is my team now. I'm going to play who gets me wins. And it's
or
fun.
Ties in this case.
Or ties or whatever, you know, and granted, it could have been a loss. And if he loses, I'm not so sure he still has a job. In fact, I would say that he doesn't have a job if they lose that game. So, you know, that's sort of the window that we have to put this in, and we're going to move on, but it's just, you know, it's like you said, blessing in disguise.
One of the problems is that this is a structural problem within MLS, because the way the salaries structured, you have to give certain players a whole bunch more money than other players, whereas in other leagues, salaries are much more evenly dispersed. So benching one player over another player is much more merit-based. It would just be a question of who is performing better in trainings, who looks better right now, whereas in Major League Soccer, because you pay these guys all this much money, there's a tension between the coaching staff and the front office with respect to exposing the stupidity of the front office for paying stupid amounts of money for players who don't deserve it, when there's people who are less expensive who play better.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then it's the other structural issue there is that you can't afford to keep some of your better players that you've developed as they get more expensive because the salary cap's so restrictive, but yet you can spend a whole bunch more money doing stuff with TAM. So why not just expand the salary cap, and that way you can keep the players that you're actually developing, and that also, it's a whole big argument. We'll go into that another time. I'll finish up with some LA Galaxy news here. Alessandrini missed Tuesday practice, all right? Kevin Baxter reported that. He was apparently downstairs receiving some extra recovery time. He has been at training every day since, and he should be available for selection on Sunday. I don't know that there was an issue. He might have just been a little more zapped than the rest of
I wonder what Alessandrini thinks of what's going on.
He loves LA. That's the thing
that I always come back to. I've said this before to Christian. Christian, what did Landon Donovan and Jurgen Klinsmann both agree on unanimously? That they both love being in professional soccer in Los Angeles.
Okay, yes, this is it. Yeah, that's absolutely it. All right, some LA Galaxy 2 news here, and then we're going to get to Mr. Mark Fishkin. The LA Galaxy 2 news, LA Galaxy 2 have lost 2 games. They lost their Saturday night game against OCFC, that is the LAFC affiliate, 4-0 on the road. Listen, I've told you before, LA Galaxy 2 is a bigger rebuilding experiment than anything the senior team is doing. They're starting such young kids right now that they're almost a U20 team in a lot of ways. So a bunch of academy kids, don't expect it to get any better. They also got shut out on Wednesday night when they played Real Monarchs, the RSL USL affiliate, 3-0. So in 2 games, they've been outscored 7-0. I didn't even go back far enough to sort of see what else they did. According to LA Galaxy head coach Mike Munoz, he said after the match, I thought that for the first 20-25 minutes, up until the penalty kick, it was pretty even. We talked about starting the game strong, coming out and making sure that we were aggressors and on the right foot. We have a play where we hit the crossbar. Maybe if we get a bit of luck, things change a little bit. But once again, you could kind of tell our lack of experience was showing through after 90 minutes. Listen, don't be frustrated by this, all right? This is what happens whenever you take most of the talent that you had on LA Galaxy 2 and you shifted it up to the senior team and you backfilled that talent with first-time professionals and academy kids. So,
well, no, I mean, if the whole goal of LA Galaxy 2 is to train kids to be professional players, then, it's the same thing that they teach in education, which is that you should teach to the highest level of the class. You should always teach to the smartest children because the less successful children will then raise to that level. You should never teach to the lowest end of the class because that just means that there's no progression. Here, you have to, the kids, they will raise their level by being exposed to playing against players who are much tougher, older, bigger, stronger, faster, experienced than them. It will improve their game. And if the whole idea is development, then that's what this is about.
It's like learning a new language. It's immersion training, all right? You're there. You got to adjust. You got to speak this new language. It's professional soccer now, so start to do it. LA Galaxy 2 in the USL Western Conference standings, last in league, 15th. They have 1 win, 5 losses, and 1 tie. They have 4 points overall. San Antonio FC is the leader in the Western Conference. Just wanted to throw that out for you just because we don't always get to LA Galaxy 2, and I don't know how much we're going to focus on them if it continues to do this, and we'll have periodic updates, but I want you to understand that that's a rebuilding process down there, and it's going to take some time. LA Galaxy's schedule, we have the Sunday. Remember, this is the first of 4 away games. We've talked about that at length, and the difficulty the LA Galaxy will now face trying to pick up points. Granted, they may be pointed in a better direction. They may be doing well, but in MLS, it is very, very, very difficult to win on the road, especially when you're traveling to the East Coast, all right? Sunday, May 14th is the game that's coming up for the Red Bulls, and then you have Sunday, May 21st away to Minnesota. Saturday, May 27th, the game I will be going to is the San Jose Earthquakes up at Avaya Stadium, so that's where the LA Galaxy will go, and then back across the East Coast to DC United. The LA Galaxy's next home game, as we're recording on this Thursday night on May 11th, is 37 days away from right now. Saturday, June 17th, when at 8 p.m. they will host the Houston Dynamo, and AJ De La Garza comes back. Then away to Colorado on June 21st, and then home to face Sporting Kansas City, a very good SKC team, coming in on June the 24th. That is your LA Galaxy schedule for right now. Let's see. We're going to get to their Supporters Shield stuff. Nobody really cares. Galaxy are in 19th place. All right. I was gonna try to say something positive about it for a second, Wendy, and then I looked at it again. I'm like, nope, LA Galaxy are 19th. There's no point in even talking about it. Toronto FC is the league leader right now, 22 points from 11 games played. They averaging 2 points per game. We always give you MLS games to watch, so let's do that. This next game you want to watch because their next opponent after the Red Bulls will be Minnesota United FC, will be at 3 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. It's Minnesota going to Toronto FC. Expect Toronto to run rampant over Minnesota United. And then, of course, you have to watch the Earthquakes, and this is the only time you have to watch the Earthquakes except when the Galaxy play, but they will be going to the Colorado Rapids to play on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So a 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern for your games to watch on Saturday. All right, Wendy, why don't we go ahead and take a break? Whenever we get back, I'm going to be joined by Mr. Mark Fishkin. Going to be glad to be talking to him, and we'll get a little bit of a preview of this LA Galaxy versus New York Red Bulls game coming up on Sunday. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
Ready for some more Corner of the Galaxy? Don't forget to head over to the website for all the latest podcasts, news, and more. Visit us online at cornerofthegalaxy.com.
Hey, this is Chris.
This is Eddie.
This is Jason.
And we're from Back Pocket Memory, and you're listening to Corner of the Galaxy.
Welcome back to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Josh Guesman back with you. Wendy will be back in just a little bit, but I had to send her away because this next guest is all mine. He and I were talking before we did this, and we've been doing this for a very, very long time, and it's always nice to have him back. And you know, the matchup is always interesting as well, regardless of the time and the travel and the place it goes. But to help us look at the New York Red Bulls from Seeing Red, Mr. Mark Fishkin. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. It's great to talk about the former 1% Derby in this weekend's action. It's very, very exciting.
We're falling out of it. It's definitely the Galaxy's fault that we're not where I think most fans think they should be right now. They're struggling mightily to get back and claw back, but a draw against Chicago, I'm not sure it gets us there. But looking at the schedule and seeing New York on the road and understanding that this game is the first game of 4 games away from StubHub Center for the LA Galaxy. They don't make it back for another 37 days until they play back at StubHub Center again. So New York has the sort of the task of making sure that the Galaxy don't get any momentum from their raucous 2-2 draw with Chicago. And then you guys, of course, coming off some tough results, back-to-back road losses in a short week for you guys. So sort of give us the breakdown of New York in the last week and a half.
Sure. Well, I think you have to think about New York in the entire season, because I don't think the Red Bulls are exactly where their fans want them either, despite the fact that they have 16 points and they are 3 points off the top of the Shield lead. New York is a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team. They play extraordinarily well at home. They have a 4-0-1 record. And aside from an opening day win at Atlanta, they've lost their last 5 matches away from home. And the last 3 of them, they were shut out. And they've conceded a ton of goals on the road, 3 to Seattle, 4 to Houston, and then this last Saturday, 3 to Philadelphia, which was the Union's first win of the season. And so this is a team that came off of a perfect 3-match homestand, 3 straight wins over DC, Columbus, and Chicago. They outscored the opposition 6-1. They traveled to Kansas City last Wednesday, and Jesse Marsch really kind of used the match to experiment, considering that Casey has been so strong this season.
Right.
They had conceded only 3 goals in 8 matches going into that match. They started Gonzalo Verón, the third-year DP of New York, who was seeing his first MLS minutes actually the week before in a mop-up role. It was his first start of the year. They sat Bradley Wright-Phillips. They sat Sasha Kljestan. And given the fact that New York is having some center back depth problems, they started Sal Zizzo as center back for his first time ever. And he was culpable on both of New York's goals. And the Red Bulls lost to Kansas City 2-0, which, again, they were 6 lineup changes. You think, okay, this was the game that New York maybe not forfeited, but was willing to forego any points, with the understanding that last Saturday they were rolling into Taylor Energy Stadium to play a winless Philadelphia team.
Yeah, we had them the weekend before. So
right.
So yeah, and they didn't beat us, but they may have. It was 0-0. It was close. It could have gone either way. So unfortunately, I think we gave them the confidence to defend their home soil there.
Well, they did. It was scoreless until the 73rd minute, where CJ Sapong scores off of a rebound. New York had plenty of chances to take the lead in this match. And then pushing for a tying goal, they give up something on the counter. It's 2-0, and then a late handball on Damian Paranel, and they've given Philadelphia a 3-0 victory. And New York traditionally has done quite well against the Union. And so after 3 straight wins, they lost twice in 4 days, being outscored 5-0. And a lot of people are just kind of wondering, is this team good? Do they suck? Are they mediocre? We just really don't know, and it's a third of the way through the season already.
Yeah, I was going to say, at a third of the way through the season for the LA Galaxy, I can tell you that I think most fans would say they suck. So at least maybe there's not a crisis of identity for LA right now. But a little bit of life coming back from Chicago and that type of thing. We should talk about this game. It is on Sunday coming up. This game will be found on Fox Sports 1. It is a nationally televised game. That's 3 p.m. Pacific time. That's 6 p.m. Eastern time. The LA Galaxy traveling all the way across to New York to take on the Red Bulls. And I'd be remiss if I said that the LA Galaxy haven't won a game on the East Coast since 2012, and that was against the Philadelphia Union. So still searching for a win in the past 5 years on the East Coast. So if I'm you, Mark, right now, I'm not feeling too worried. But how do you feel going into this LA game?
Yeah, I mean, again, New York has won. They're 4-0-1 at home this season. This team has had a traditional challenge over the last few years of winning games that they're supposed to win, right? Last season and into this season, they went 19 straight matches, unbeaten in the league, but a lot of those games were drop points from leading positions, wins turned into draws. And so, the story for the Red Bulls over the last few years is they're excellent in the regular season. They finished tops in the East 4 out of the last 7 years, and then they gack it in the postseason. And so I think some Red Bull fans, and I think Jesse Marsh as well, understands that as long as you're above the line, as Galaxy fans know,
yes, exactly.
that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
And if they can get hot late, that's fine. And so while I think Jesse's would certainly love to be playing better and clearly has to figure out how to play on the road, I don't think he's all that concerned. His key players, Kljestan, Bradley Wright Phillips, Mike Grella, who's come back from injury, Danny Royer, who's been playing on the left wing, Alex Mouille, homegrown right wing, Luis Robles, of course. They just have to play their game and they have to feel confident. And if he can get them to feel confident as they play at home everywhere else in the league, they'll be fine.
Yeah, I was looking at sort of the points total here and seeing, obviously LA Galaxy 8 points after 9 games, not exactly where you want to be. But at the same time, you look at the Red Bulls, you guys have played 2 more games than the LA Galaxy already. And then I look down and you look at some of the other stats. You know how they always do that side-by-side comparison of the stats. And you look, these teams aren't separated by that much, which is kind of interesting to me. First of all, I think the Eastern Conference is a stronger conference this year, which may not have been the case in years prior, but this year for sure, I think that watching the Eastern Conference and that race right now is probably where the most excitement lies. But you look at this, and I'm looking at the stats, it's not that much different, but at the same time, I can't help but think that talent-wise, do you look at the LA Galaxy? I always try to do this. Do you look at the LA Galaxy and say, that's a very talented team, look at all the people who are on that field?
Well, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the talent level compared to previous years is not the same.
Okay.
And I think that's okay. As someone that's covered a team that used to spend big money on big flashy players like Thierry Henry and Tim Cahill and God bless Rafa Marquez.
Right.
I mean, we know that Jones is injured; he won't play. We know that Van Damme is having a lot of challenge with Onalfo right now and got yanked in the first half.
Yep.
We know that Alessandrini has been fantastic since he joined the team, and that Zardes is working his way back. So I don't think it's fair. I wouldn't say that there isn't a lot of talent on the team. I think there is talent on the team. I think there probably is less flashy talent than we've seen in the past. But if Zardes and Alessandrini and Dos Santos are clicking, I mean, that's a threesome that I don't think anybody wants to face.
No, but at the same time, I look at, Sasha Kljestan, Bradley Wright Phillips, Felipe. I know that that Tyler Adams is unfortunately going to be released to the U.S. Under 20 camp, so we won't get to see him. I was kind of looking forward to that, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I mean, you look at New York, and I see a team right now that is in much better shape than the LA Galaxy are. You went over perfectly all the issues that the LA Galaxy have, especially in the back and at defense, with a talented striker like Bradley Wright Phillips, with somebody like Sasha Kljestan, who Bruce Arena tried to get not once, not twice, but I think 3 times. Before he ended up in New York. In fact, my outfit reported the story that Sasha Kljestan was coming. I was so sure it was happening.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So you look at that, and I sit here and say that New York clearly has the upper hand, unbeaten at home. this seems like a pretty easy win for New York, and just looking at it that way, I mean, am I off base on that at all? I know, always tough, right?
Again, I mean, this sounds like a big pity party, Josh. I mean, this is like, no, you should win. No, you guys should win. I'm certainly not going to say that LA is going to be favored in this match, especially learning as I just did that they haven't won on the East Coast in 5 years.
Yes.
But at the same time, New York has to show that this 4-day stretch was a bit of a hiccup, and that they are definitely in better form than that. I mean, speaking to the players today at practice, they know that the Red Bulls versus LA is a big game, and regardless of the size of the salary rosters and despite whose names are on the back of the shirts, I mean, this has been a glamour matchup in the league. And yes, I think both teams are dissatisfied with where they are on the table, but that doesn't mean it's going to be an important, impressive match. It's a national televised match. Although the weather here, I'll be honest with you, it is going to rain all day Saturday, and then it should be rainy probably right up until kickoff.
All right.
I don't know what that means for the field. I don't know what it means for the crowd. The crowds at the Red Bulls this year have been very, very uneven, and it's Mother's Day, and it's 6:00 on a Sunday. So, yeah, I mean, is it safe to say the Red Bulls will be favored playing at home over this team that's not doing too well? Yes. Yeah. Does that mean it's absolutely 3 points? No doubt. I would say definitely not. And I think the confidence that the team probably gained coming back from 2 goals down at home to Chicago, snatching 1 point from the jaws of defeat, I think perhaps Onalfo understands who are the players on his team that need to be on the field to make it go, notwithstanding the strength of Jones or Van Damme's issues with the coach. So could I see a draw? Sure. Yep. Do I think New York is going to lose this game? That would be a massive surprise. The Red Bulls have not lost at home since last March against Kansas City.
Not even the 2012 thing on the East Coast, that last March, Kansas City, that's too much for the Galaxy to overcome. If you had to pick one weakness on this Red Bulls team that you think perhaps the LA Galaxy could exploit before we let you go, what is that?
I think so. New York has been having a lot of challenges with center back depth. Gideon Ba, who signed, Ghanaian player who signed last year, is on the physical unable to perform list. He was injured last year and has not come back, so he's out for the year. Mm-hmm. New York is basically playing with 3 center backs, not including Celsiso, and that line has been thinned with Aurelian Collin day-to-day with a groin injury, or week-to-week. So that leaves 24-year-old Aaron Long, who was the USL Defender of the Year last year for Red Bulls 2, who were the USL champions, by the way.
Yes.
And he has been phenomenal. He had kind of a bad moment against Philadelphia, but for a rookie player to come in and play so well is terrific. And then next to him will probably be Damien Paranel, who, frankly, is a step down from Collin. Mm-hmm. And so if there's one person to target, it's probably Paranel on the Red Bulls backline. He would be my weak link.
That's fun because the LA Galaxy are basically playing with 3 center backs as well, and whoever they can fit in at right back, that sort of works sometimes too. So always interesting. Again, the game is at 3 p.m. West Coast time, 6 p.m. East Coast time. FS1 is where you can find it. Mr. Fishkin, please tell everybody where they can find you so they can follow your wonderful, wonderful stuff that you do.
Sure. So if Mr. Fishkin is my dad, I'm Mark, and you can find me on the internets at the cryptic Mark Fishkin on Twitter. Seeing Red NY is the place for all things Red Bulls on Twitter and Facebook, as well as seeingredny.com. And if you are feeling the need to go all in on all of your Red Bulls, I am now producing a daily podcast and news source through Patreon at patreon.com/seeingreddaily, including daily updates from Red Bulls practice. Not that I'm expecting your listenership to get in necessarily, but it's good to know that it's there.
Absolutely wonderful. Mark does a great job. Like I said, he and I have been around for a very long time, which is starting to make me feel old. I don't know about how you feel, Mark, but I'm starting to feel old in this podcast game.
If you're feeling old, then you can only imagine where I am.
Mark, it's great talking to you, buddy. I'm sure we'll catch up again. Good luck on Sunday, and good luck with the rest of the season, all right?
Always a pleasure.
All right, there goes Mr. Mark Fishkin. What I'm going to do is go ahead and take a quick break. Whenever I get back, Wendy joins me. We'll wrap up this show. We're almost there. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
Recording from CoG Studios and not their mom's basement, it's Corner of the Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Josh and Wendy back with you. Great to hear from Mr. Mark Fishkin. Glad to hear all that fun stuff from Mark. Like I said, big game with the LA Galaxy. And, of course, the New York Red Bulls coming up on Sunday. All right, Wendy. I have to ask you a very important question. This is the most important question, actually. How do you want to talk about this game? Would you like a big intro? Because I have one.
God.
I have one ready, big intro, or would you like boring intro?
It's about how you feel, Josh. I'm here for you. I want to satisfy what your needs are with respect to this podcast. If you feel good doing the big intro, I'm not going to stop you from doing that.
Well, I already asked the chat room what they wanted, and they said somebody said boring intro, and so that person got blocked. So the rest of them said big intro, hype it. So I guess we'll do a big intro. So as I said before, Wendy, these are done live. All right, this is not pre-recorded. The only thing
I know. I'm so proud of you.
So it's like walking on a tightrope without a net. I could fall off at any time.
It is daring. It is dashing. It is exhilarating. It is everything I admire in a man.
Of course. They're very good. All right, let's get this thing started. Your LA Galaxy will travel to New York and Red Bull Arena to take on the New York Red Bulls Sunday, May 13th, 3 p.m. Pacific time. This game can be found on Fox Sports 1. It is a nationally televised game. The New York Red Bulls are 5-1, 16 points, 11 games played, 5th in the Eastern Conference, 9th in the Supporters' Shield standings. The LA Galaxy are 2-5-2, 8 points, 9 games played, 9th in the Western Conference, 19th in the Supporters' Shield Conference, just 3 spots from the bottom. The Red Bulls have been outscored 5-0 in their last 2 games. That came as a 2-0 loss to Sporting Kansas City and a 3-0 loss to the Philadelphia. Both of those games away actually gave Philadelphia Union their first win of the year. But the Red Bulls are coming home where they have not lost a home game at all in 2017, 4-0-1. But the LA Galaxy in their road record, not exactly stellar, 1-2-0 in 2017, and the one win was against RSL, and that was a 10-man RSL. The LA Galaxy have not won at Red Bull Arena since August 14th, 2010. That was a 1-0 victory where Edson Buttle scored his 13th goal of the season and would go on to score 17 goals that year. That is a year, by the way. The Galaxy would go on to win the Supporters' Shield, but get eliminated by FC Dallas in the Western Conference Finals. LA Galaxy are 16-18-8 versus the Red Bulls all time, and they are 7-12-3 in New York versus the Red Bulls / Metro Stars. LA Galaxy have been outscored at Red Bulls 28-35, but hold the overall lead in the overall standing 60-59 in that series. The LA Galaxy are on a 4-game winless streak, and they've yet to beat a team who wasn't reduced to 10 men. They've allowed the first goal in 7 of 9 games and are 1-5-1 when allowing that first goal. The LA Galaxy defense has allowed 15 goals, tied for 18th. Red Bull has allowed 15 goals, tied for 18th. The LA Galaxy have scored 10 goals this season, 19th overall in the league, but Red Bulls have one more. They've scored 11 goals. Red Bull midfielder Tyler Adams will miss this game because he's off at fitness camp with the U20s, and then Sean Davis is his likely replacement. We already talked about Jermaine Jones being injured. And of course, the LA Galaxy are without a goal from a striker in the run of play. We've got a lot to talk about in this game. Wendy and I still have a bunch to get to. So Wendy, we'll start it right here. We'll start with you. What are you thinking about this New York game? Are you at all optimistic that the LA Galaxy could pull something off?
No, but I would settle for, at this point in time, I would settle for us doing something that is a step in the right direction. I would feel positive if someone who is a forward, meaning either Gyasi Zardes or Giovanni Dos Santos or Romain Alessandrini. No, actually, strike that. Zardes or Giovanni Dos Santos, I want one of them to score a goal through the run of play.
Wow. That would be a monumental step for the LA Galaxy.
I would be awestruck.
Can I tell you, and obviously we went through the stats and sort of the dramatic breakdown of everything, right? But the LA Galaxy, and I said this wrong whenever I was talking to Mark Fishkin, the LA Galaxy haven't won on the East Coast since they beat Philadelphia in 2013. 2012 was a Philadelphia home game at StubHub Center. 2013 was the actual year. Now, it's not a ton of games. I think the LA Galaxy are 0-4-3 in East Coast games. That's not teams that are in the Eastern time zone. That's teams I consider on the East Coast. So there aren't that many games. But at the same time, it's been a long time. That's 4 years since the LA Galaxy won on the East Coast. And it shows how difficult it is to even do that, and against a team who hasn't lost at home yet, a team who I think is very talented, even though you look at the stats, and I said it with Mark, you look at these stats, Wendy, these teams really are not that far away from each other in terms of how many goals they've given up and how many goals they've scored. I mean, they're
Well, there hasn't been that many games, Josh. I mean, you can't really create a statistical enormous difference when we're only a third of the way into the season. I mean, I think that we didn't win during those games in the East Coast, and that's when we were good.
Yes.
So do I think that we're going to win this game? I do not think we're going to win this game. I just want to see something positive, and I have chosen as my positive thing that I want to see a goal from Gyasi Zardes or Giovanni Dos Santos scored through the run of play.
All right, I'll take even a sub that comes on as a striker if they score too. I'm going to be jumping up and down for that. That's my caveat.
God, our standards have plummeted from what they once were. It is appalling.
Well, you can't be reasonable and say, oh, yeah, the LA Galaxy. If you are saying the LA Galaxy are going to win this game, then you're delusional. And I cannot get behind that because how could you say that? Do I think they can squeak out a draw? I think there's a possibility. I'm not going to say it's a large possibility, but I think that being New York has not played that well over its last 2 games, that the Galaxy could go in there with some confidence that they've gained and get a draw. That's okay.
Josh, I admire you so much.
I said it was a possibility. I didn't say the all likelihood. If you make me bet my house on whether or not the LA Galaxy will get a point or 0 points for this game, I'm putting it on 0 points. I mean, that's sort of the road trip, by the way. I mean, I think that a reasonable haul from this road trip, as it's looked at right now, knowing what we know about this LA Galaxy game, 4 games on the road, 2 on the East Coast.
Like 1 point?
1 point, I think, is optimistic.
Yeah, that's pathetic.
That is absolutely pathetic. And that's what the LA Galaxy have come to. But if they can get some momentum against this New York team, if they can steal a point here, all bets are off. We're going to have to reevaluate. It's time to think. Because what did they do? What happened? You know, we saw them in Chicago. We think that they have a mindset now where we think they can win. Right? In terms of
you think they do.
I do. Well, they've convinced me. This is the hard part.
I know.
This is the hard part about talking to the players, and whenever they're that jacked up.
I know it's hard. You love them.
I want all players to be successful, and that goes whenever I talk to the away team too. I love the fact that these guys are doing what they love, and I want every single one of them to be successful. I want Curt to succeed. I want Chris and Pete. I want all of them to succeed. But that doesn't mean that whenever you don't, I'm not going to sit there and say you're not succeeding and you need to change things. And that's where the LA Galaxy are right now. But if they start winning, it's the best possible thing for this LA Galaxy team. Or they should really, really, really start to lose. All right, so that way things can change. And maybe they will change by the time the LA Galaxy get back at home in 37 days. All right, Wendy, here's the question. I got a couple questions specifically around this game for you. Should Jelle Van Damme remain the captain?
So I think that Jelle Van Damme should start and remain the captain, and if he does not play well, then Curt should remove him again.
Okay, so that's it. And you think he's going to start, right? So start and the captain.
I think he's going to start, yeah.
And I agree with that. Okay, there's lots of people, sort of speculating that, listen, Curt already embarrassed him. He already did his thing. He already proved his point. Now it's time to be like, hey, you worked hard in training, as all reports seem to indicate. You get to come back in this. Now you're there. Now we're together. Now we can be this, this united front that we're on the same team, y'all. Don't you get it? We're on the same team. He's going to repair bridges. All right.
He already peed on the tree. He doesn't need to drop a deuce on it too.
I think that is a perfectly reasonable analogy for a lot of people. I think that works wonderfully. And then here's the big thing, and we talked about it, and even with your one positive thing you're hoping that comes out of this game is that that a goal is scored from the run of play
scored by a striker.
That's right. How long should the Galaxy fans continue to wait for this offense to get on board? And is it the offense? Is it the midfield?
Well, I don't. Well, I think mostly I do think it's the midfield. I think the midfield pairing's been awful, and so consequently, our forwards just can't do anything. But I also think that there's a problem with strikers, and I also think there's a problem with defense. So really, it's all three sectors of the field are not working.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's generally just poor across
But if
the
I
board.
could get a goal from someone who's a striker, from someone who's being paid $4 million a year to score goals, if we could get a goal from this guy, it would make me feel so much better.
You know what? This is going to be us next week. We're like, if the Galaxy could score some goals, like in warm-ups, if they could just
if they're playing a game of keep away and Giovanni Dos Santos makes a nice pass, then I would feel really good about it.
Yeah, the LA Galaxy have lost so many points at home, and you look at this, they've played 3 games on the road, and there's 9 games played. I can do the math on that, even when I went to Arizona State. That means they've played 6 games at home. They've gotten no points out of that. I mean, realistically, they have 1 win and 2 draws, so they have 5 points out of 6 games at home, which is appalling. That's 5 points out of 18 possible points. So you look at that, and you understand that in MLS you don't win on the road. Something magical has to happen. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Something big has to turn around on this road trip where people are getting fired and you can start to write this season off. We are at that point. Don't bring up Seattle again. I don't want to hear about how Seattle came back.
No more Seattle.
No,
talk.
screw that, okay? They won an MLS Cup without a shot on goal, all right? Let's not strive to be Seattle. They'll have a cup and they'll be happy with that, all right? That's fine with them.
At this point in time, I would trade positions with Seattle in a hot second. They have a coach who's actually smart. They have players who are playing well. There's a lot of teams in MLS. Actually, I've been watching a lot of MLS games. There's a lot of teams that are playing pretty well.
There's some fun teams. Toronto FC has been
there's some pretty entertaining teams out there. Not us. Other teams.
Not the Galaxy. Hey, go over to cornerofthegalaxy.com whenever you get a chance. I put some charts together. I'm going to keep putting those charts together.
Oh my God, we are the dorkiest couple of podcasters. Josh, between the two of us, who is the bigger dork?
Oh, it's me. It's not even close. Do you know how many hours I spend working on this stuff?
I'm tempted to challenge you on that.
You're a really good second, but you're like second. If we were running a race, you're like a mile and a half behind me after I finish in terms of this. It's not
I don't know.
like you finished second, but it's not really close.
I like Star Trek. I don't know.
I like Star Trek too. I mean, that doesn't necessarily change things, all right?
I like math. I like stats.
I do not like math or stats. However, when they are LA Galaxy related, love them.
Then you're into them.
I'm totally you got to get me interested in things. That's how it works. All right. So your prediction for this game then, Wendy, besides
we lose. I'm predicting a 2-0 loss.
2-0 loss. Josh says the LA Galaxy do way more than Wendy. Josh says the LA Galaxy get a stunning 1-1 draw against the New York Red Bulls. Yep, that's right.
Knock my socks off.
Going on a limb, they get a point in the House of the Bull. It is going to happen. I mean, these are predictions known to be wrong every single time. So let's see. I'll tell you again that I think Curt Onalfo has bought himself some time. So if they lose this game, which they are expected to lose, he's not going to get fired. Calm down, chill out, relax. All right. This is a time now. It's a timing thing.
What if they lose all 4?
Yeah, then I don't know that he makes it back. If they lose 3, if they lose against Minnesota United, that might be a different story. We'll have to see. It's so week by week right now that it's difficult because we keep sitting. You should see the podcast titles that we've put out, Wendy. It's like Curt Onalfo's on the hot seat, right? And then the next one comes out is Curt Onalfo's hot seat cooled down for now. It's
he's on a lukewarm seat that may increase in temperature slightly.
Yeah, maybe or not. Or maybe, or it could go down, or who knows? Again, let's not pretend like doing the thing that everybody expects them to do is something the Galaxy have done so far this year or in the off season.
We're not gonna think that they're gonna do the predictable thing because we know that's not going to happen.
We know how it works. All right. Again, head over to cornerofthegalaxy.com, see all of the articles. There's game previews up there. There's podcasts. There are 3 podcasts that are out this week, so please check those out. Wendy, why don't you tell people where they can find you, and then we will end this.
You can find me at cornerofthegalaxy.com and American Soccer Now, and on Twitter at BardsBlonde.
All right, and if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course, at Galaxy Podcast on Twitter. Go to cornerofthegalaxy.com. I've said it now 3 times. That's the place you can find all the writings, all the charts, all of the previews, everything else in there that we can come up with and put out for you is right there on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you get a chance. That's where we do all of our live shows on Thursday nights, and if you're not watching us live, you should try some of those sometimes. It's a good time. Chat room and I had a good time tonight. So that's about it. LA Galaxy take on the New York Red Bulls on Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, Fox Sports 1, FS1, nationally televised game, all right? All you mothers have a wonderful Mother's Day. Everybody have a good weekend, and we will definitely be here whenever you're ready on Monday night to go back over this game. For Miss Wendy Thomas, I'm Josh Guesman. Thank you to Mr. Mark Fishkin. Everyone have a great night, and we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everyone.